Alright, as I stated, I was going to do a review of these Pietta Remington 1858 revolvers. In the one video I made discussing cap and ball revolvers in general, I kind of said that this model, because it's still being produced, a lot of the solid frame, more advanced guns are not, like the Star, the Rogers and Spencers, they are not currently being manufactured by anyone. So if you were a beginner, I was kind of saying that this was probably the model you should go with to be a little bit easier on you. But as we found, I ran into problems with this particular revolver, but I did not with this one. So what we're going to cover in this video, and the reason that you'll find this is because of all the variances between number one, we're going to cover design, okay, the actual copy of the design. Two, the manufacturing tolerances and quality control of the current manufacturers of the reproduction guns. This plays a big part in it. Then again, your own interest in how deep you want to get into this, because these weapons are strange in a way. Cap and ball revolvers, out of all the reproduction black powder guns, are kind of the most popular, and they're kind of, I don't know how you'd explain it, they're kind of a niche thing where people who are really not into the Civil War, not into reenacting, and all this other stuff, will buy these like on a whim, just as a novelty. They're a very novel gun, and there are more people on a broader spectrum interested in a cap and ball gun than any other replica black powder firearms. So let's go and start covering what I found with my trials here. All right, we're going to talk about malfunctions in terms of design. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the design of these Remington 1858s is a little bit more advanced than the Colt. What it is, it has solid frame, different type of hammer deal. It's basically pretty thin blade. It doesn't have the little notch because the safety on these, whereas a Colt, you'd have a little pin, and that's what that little notch in the face of the hammer is for, to engage the pin. Here, you have an actual slot where this thin face of the hammer slides into the slot in between the chambers, and that's your safety. Okay? So, what happens when you got this design? Also, you see where there's just a little slot in the frame. So even if a nipple gets stuck on the hammer, it's usually peeled off or held inside the frame. And also, I believe Remington, the way they designed this, the difficulty of capping this, these shields or something, or the shape of the cylinder around the nipple also, I think, is in play for not having the nipple expand out and create the jams. The reason it happens, and I have this Colt 1851, is with all Colt open top guns, you see right in there, there's this huge area for the hammer in the frame, and the nipple's right there. There's nothing blocking it. There is a relief cut inside the frame so that an expanded nipple can drop off, but what happens is when you develop your pressure, okay, from this. Now, round ball would say 15 grains, about 12, 15 grains in this 36 caliber, probably wouldn't do it. You start getting into the conicals or paper cartridges, I've noticed they develop a little bit more pressure, which the pressure exerts through the nipple and will make the nipple flatten out, okay, or this is where you should go to Era's Gone website or check out his videos, he shows you with a slow motion camera where when the pressure comes back after the gun is fired, the hammer will go back about that far. And of course it's pushing the cap, the metal from the expended cap with it. And then what happens is the hammer will drop back down. You won't even notice it. Okay, you don't notice it. It goes back for a ways where it starts to engage about that far. But what it does, it allows that metal fragments to go down into here and get into the frame, get attached to the inside of the hammer, or drop all the way down into the action itself. This is just an inherent design flaw with the Colt, okay? And just about all of them, all right? These open top revolvers. The solid frame ones kind of eliminate that, and like I told you, I said this probably would be the best one to use, because really, if anything, you may have a cap twisted up into the cylinder area where the nipple is, and if it does protrude out to where it would hit down here on the frame, basically you could either flick it off with your finger or with a little bit more pressure. I've never had one lock up with a cap jam. I'll put it to you that way. Now, let's talk about quality control. As you notice, I had problems with these guns. Now I have the two of the guns. They're both made by Pietta. They both have the same year code, CM and CM. Okay? So these are both made about the same time. What I found with this gun, this sheriff's model with the short barrel, it functions flawlessly right out of the box. Didn't have to modify the parts or anything, had no trouble with it. Timing is good, all that other stuff. And when I use number 10 caps on here, okay, on these nipples, I, just put it on there, maybe push it with my finger, and there's no forcing it to seat it or any of this other stuff. It worked fine, no misfires, no cap jams. Same style gun, just with a longer barrel, the only difference, and same year manufactured. This gun had several issues. One, the hammer would not, the trigger wouldn't engage into the hammer. And if you see in the early videos, you can see where I have trouble with that. Like I said, if you watch the videos, you'll see where when I came back, it wouldn't engage. It would come back and it wouldn't engage into the notch on the hammer. I had to clean that up with a file until I got it to work. Also with this one, okay, like I said, same year, same company. If I now I had everyone tell me, oh, you should shove them down the caps and all this other stuff with a wooden dowel, or one guy, I use number 11s. If I put 11s on this gun, they fall off. Then you'd have to pinch them or crush them and hope that they stay on and engage, but they can blow off if you're doing that, if the nipples are that loose, which they are. If I just put 11s on there without pinching them, fired it, and they all fly off, then it's, even pinching it's not really going to be a good, consistent fix to the problem. So I went with number 10s. This one here, number 10s are fine. This one here, I'm getting these strange misfires. No real jams or anything, but you'd have to hit it twice. So upon looking at why does this gun not have the problem and this one does, when I looked at the nipples, and it's hard to tell because they're blued, but if you can see when you hold it up to the light, there's chatter. The nipples, probably the shape when they machined them or processed them, the tool was dull, left a rough finish, and the shape of the comb is probably not that precise or exact. And this is what's creating the problem. You put a cap on there after it's been fouled, something gets built up, it's not sliding down all the way. People say just shove it down, and I have pushed with things trying to get it down on there, it's inconsistent, okay? What it is, the quality control, the finish and fit of these nipples is not good. Where on this gun, they are, and they're trouble-free and give you no problems. So this is another factor. You could say, well, you know, this guy said, I got this brand gun, this model gun, and he doesn't have no trouble, but I got all these problems. Well, that's where the manufacturing inconsistency comes in. And that's why it's confusing. Because you can have a problem, but there may be multiple reasons why you're having the problem. Okay? And that's just the long and short of it. Either the way the designs are, like with the Colt open tops, which are a little bit more temperamental, or you have some quality issues where you have variances and tolerances aren't held that tight, which create your problem. But all in all, these guns, this particular model, is probably, like I said, less temperamental than a Colt. It is currently being manufactured, okay, where a lot of these solid frame guns and the different designs and models are not. Now when you get into, like I said, you know, the design flaw where when they did this, it's not like the original, and the loading port and the position of the ram makes using certain conical bullets a little bit on the difficult side. If you're just going to shoot round balls, and now we'll talk about round balls and that. There are a lot of people who compete. There are a lot of people that are really into shooting these guns, and a lot of them say the round balls give them more than enough accuracy, or, you know, any one of these guns without any modification, you can have trouble-free shooting of the round balls. You get your load down, figure out what the gun likes, get an accurate load, and it's more than sufficient. So a lot of people, and I mean, you just go to the store, buy a box of 100 of them, some caps, and go out and shoot. Yeah. You don't have to screw around, you don't have to modify the gun or nothing, and just your cap thing here. So that's one way of looking at it. When you use the conical bullets, the way these are, like I said, there was a minor frame modification to use the Kerr bullets. But someone come back and said, again, this is a manufacturing thing. They changed the frames from castings to forgings, and the forgings are closer to the originals, and you don't have to modify the frame. Depending on the year it was manufactured, there's some people that are way into this more than me. Can tell you the year, tell you the twist rate in the barrel, all this other stuff, and when they changed it, when the company changed it, or if the company changed hands back in 1995, you know, or whatever. A lot of variables there, but some people said they can use that bullet trouble-free with no modifications. So, you know, you have to look at it that way. And it all depends on how deep you want to get into this. You know, like I said, whenever things got crazy, I used to go and fool with these guns, and the most I'd shoot is maybe 24 rounds in a session, screwing around just with round balls and powder, and that was it. Then I put the guns up, probably never shoot them for another 5 years. These videos I'm doing and the amount of time I've spent on this type of weapon is about as far in depth as I've gone. I've never ran them on the chronograph until recently, and I've never took the time to tweak them minutely to get it down to a fine art. But these guns are fairly good, like I said, and it's hard to tell. I can't say that this is worse than a Uberti. I don't have a Uberti made Remington, but you know, they're not bad guns. And for a beginner, depending on where you want to go, probably this is the best model to get into, but be warned, you can get one that is right out of the box, not quite that good, okay, like this. It was a minor fix, and I know some people do not like going and totally disassembling the gun and filing and all this other stuff on there to get this gun to work correctly, but, you know, for me it was simple. It was a simple fix. Also, another thing, the sights on these guns. The sights on these guns are pretty much well on. I was shooting at 7 and 10 yards and not shooting very high. Like the Colts will shoot like 12 inches high at that distance. These, if anything, they may shoot a few like 2 or 3 inches high, which is easy to adjust for, more than like 12 inches. So they're also very good there. I mean, they're solid guns. A lot of it goes into the design, and they function well. Like I said, maybe, and I kind of lied, I said you wouldn't have to modify it much. This one here, I believe I'm just going to change the damn nipples, okay? Because this misfiring and that's a pain in the butt. And I will just go put the slick shots on there, because them bronze Amico nipples do about the same thing that this is doing. They get a buildup. I mean, they're precision machine. The cap goes on there and locks in there real good, but after about 4 or 5 cylinders, you start getting a buildup, and then with the pushing and this and that, you don't get the cap jams on the Colt like you did with the other nipples. But now you're into this where you gotta shove it, and you're getting misfires, and you're spending $35 and you're back to square one again. You kind of half solved the problem. So that may be the only other modification I'm going to do on this gun, but they're pretty good. And that's my assessment of them. Like I said, if you're a beginner, probably this would be the one to start with. Get used to it. About the worst thing you'd have to do is change out the nipples. If you wanted to use conical bullets with ease, I mean, you can get them in here without modifying it. You can drop them in. It's a little tricky, but you don't really have to modify it. I just did that slight modification because I wanted to. But probably this would be a good one to start with, this model gun. And I like them. Going to shoot them more. Going to get some more bullets made up, and going to see how it does. All right, so that's my kind of post-shooting review on this. So stay tuned, guys.